Um, Alrighty. Hi, everyone. So for those who may not know me, whom I probably haven't met yet, my name is Jessica Montes, Government Affairs Officer at the Alameda County Community Food Bank. Our team would like to welcome everyone to this community conversation. In particular, we would like to welcome our partner agencies. And if you've joined our community conversations in the past or last month, welcome again. If you're new here, welcome. We will be posting Spanish language summary of our presentation in the comment box. También publicaremos un resumen en español de nuestra presentación en el cuadro de comentarios. Okay, so slide number 2, please. Jocelyn, thank you. So we have 3 goals for today. One being to highlight some ongoing efforts at local level throughout Alameda County regarding housing and unhoused advocacy. Number 2 being to hear from some local agencies on the work they're doing and general insight. And 3, to have a conversation about how we can all build solidarity and how you can be involved in advocacy. First, we would like to open with a question. The question being, what hobby have you picked up recently or wish to begin that brings you joy or peace? Would anyone like to share? And feel free to type any answers in the comment box too. I can share for myself. I recently started journaling in the morning and at night. I used to do it back then, and then it's one of those things where you stop, it's hard to get back on it. So I started doing it morning and night, and I heard something in a podcast recently, or the way they sort of framed it really stuck to me. She said, journaling in the morning, especially before you get your day started, is really a way to not just like check in with yourself, but to talk to yourself. And it really stuck to me. And I've been doing it for maybe like two straight weeks now. And I've really been seeing the difference or feeling the difference. Especially the days I do have like a hectic schedule. It's just a nice way to kind of start off on a calmer vibe. I see Linda's response, swimming in the morning. Ooh, nice, Linda. In the morning too. That takes courage. Reading at night, awesome. Teaching yourself how to paint, Tressa, to lower my screen time. Yeah, that's a good strategy for that. Long walks with dogs, just word. Nice. Awesome. Thanks for sharing, everyone. And hiking. Oh, I love that. Um, awesome. So we'll go ahead and hop to slide number 3. Thank you, Jocelyn. So some folks may still wonder, why are we, the food bank, concerned about issues like housing, immigration? And that is because we, as the Alameda County Community Food Bank, want to take a very intersectional approach versus just focusing on food and or CalFresh. We see that the rent eats first. Housing and houselessness are the top issues for our community because of the high cost of living and general instability, which makes food insecurity worse. On the top left of the screen, you see a visual representing our team's theory of change, which includes to trust and center most impacted people by activating 3 levers: community power, government accountability, and transforming systemic hunger, poverty, and racism. Some of the advocacy efforts our team has done in response to intersectional issues have included these monthly community conversations like today. We've hosted candidate forums at both local and state level. This bottom picture on the left-hand side actually was our County District 5 candidate forum that we hosted in collaboration with St. Augustine's in West Oakland. And that is when the now newly elected Supervisor Nikki Fortunato Bass was running against former Emeryville Mayor John Bowders. Um, and in fact, actually, yesterday was Supervisor Nikki's celebration ceremony where myself and our director Eliza attended, which was a really good experience. I think that, like regardless of who won the race, it was just a very community-based celebration. So it's always nice to be in community and for community for big celebrations like that. So now moving on, our team has also published, sorry, a voter guide during the Get Out the Vote season, where we supported affordable housing, rent control, and general support for tenants and the in-house community. Throughout all of our efforts and events, we've engaged with different folks at local and state level and have built great relationships. And throughout these conversations is that we hear about the importance of these intersectional issues like food insecurity, housing, immigration, all under the context of how our team defines and describes food justice. On the right-hand side, you see an overview of the county's Vision 2026, or also known as a 10-year comprehensive plan. This visual is an important reminder highlighting that the county also takes an intersectional approach to these matters. And although I personally think of this visual as a way to hold the county and elected officials accountable to do their jobs, I think it's also a reminder that it takes all of us to combat hunger, poverty, and racism. It takes the food bank, the county, other local governments, and community partners like you all. Next slide, please. Now, focusing on a few local updates, including a recent local win for the county's unincorporated areas, where a just cause ordinance passed after a 5-year-long campaign. Advocates from organizations like My Eden Voice and Padres Unidos of Cherryland fought and stood for this long fight for tenant protections, which included many requests for edits, questioning, and revisions during several Board of Supervisor meetings. Finally, this ordinance, serving as a form of tenant protection and homelessness prevention, has officially passed. More recently, the city of Fremont passed a new ordinance banning homeless encampments. This ordinance makes it illegal to camp on streets, sidewalks, parks, or public areas. Additionally, this ordinance makes anyone, quote, causing, permitting, aiding, and abetting, unquote, and an encampment guilty of a misdemeanor and possibly a $1,000 fine and 6 months in jail. Next slide, please. Now, I'm excited to introduce our first guest speaker, Kiana Simmons from Housing Leadership Council of San Mateo County. Kiana will be sharing briefly on 3 different matters: her work in San Mateo County, her personal advocacy and insight regarding the Fremont Ordinance, and lastly, sharing her personal advocacy in statewide efforts. I believe it's important to share about ongoing efforts or responses with our neighboring cities and counties in order to learn from each other. So I'm excited to have Kiana sharing briefly about San Mateo County as well as her personal involvement outside of work throughout the East Bay. And Kiana, I'll pass it on to you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kiana Simon. I'm so sorry for the last minute of this, but I do have some slides. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Yes, please do so. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everybody. You can kind of see my face now. I'm happy to be here. I'm really excited to talk about my work. Um, can you let me know if you see my screen? I'll take head nods. Okay, or
Yes.
thumbs up. Okay, awesome. Um, okay, let me just make this present and we're good to go. So, like I said, my name is Kiana. I work at an organization called the Housing Leadership Council. We're based in San Mateo County, and in case you don't know, it's this county over here. It's right underneath San Francisco, right across the bay from Alameda County. It's yeah, San Mateo County. There's East Palo Alto, Redwood City, Daly City, South San Francisco. All of those cities are in the county that I work in. And my organization is a 501(c)(3) nonprofit. We were founded in 2001 by affordable housing developers to build and support the building of new affordable housing And more recently, anti-displacement. So anti-displacement has become a focal point of my organization, and that's a lot of what I do. So I'm mostly talking today about homelessness and what I have seen in San Mateo County, what I've seen in other counties. And I don't know if anyone here is that familiar with San Mateo County, but it is a pretty conservative county, and they're able to kind of not do as much for the community as other cities and or other jurisdictions are required to do. So one example of that is Millbrae. The city of Millbrae refused a permanent supportive housing development, which would house, I think it was like close to, I think it was like around 70. It would have housed 70 people who are transitioning out of homelessness. And there was so much contempt for people who are homeless that the city, the mayor, the city manager, they went on a whole tirade to prevent this housing. They ended up suing the county over this. The county said, yes, build the home key development. And the city said, no, we're going to sue you. And they also recalled two of their city council people who supported the development. So, when I say San Mateo County is conservative, that's kind of what I mean, right? They are actively not accepting the things that need to happen, the change that we need in our communities. We do need more affordable housing, and we also need more permanent supportive housing for people who need it. Otherwise, the homelessness issue that we have is not going to be solved. So tragically, that happened in Millbrae. My organization was working on that. We're really disappointed to see this happen in our county. Another thing that was really unfortunate was San Mateo County passed an encampment ordinance, and this was passed before grants pass. And how they got around their ordinance, like the language of it, was they said that if there is a shelter bed available, people have to go to it. And if they do not, then they will face repercussions as like fines and potentially even jail time. My organization at this intersection, we decided to create a new value, a commitment to housing first. Um, and that being very simply, housing is the only way to end homelessness. Any other um, avenue is not really going to work. So like the criminalization avenue is not very supportive. It doesn't help people where they need it. So unfortunately, these two things led to our organization being a little bit more vocal about housing first and doing a little bit more homelessness stuff. Um, and I apologize as well if I'm like speaking a little too jargony. So please feel free to interrupt me and ask me questions. But I included the slide to just explain briefly what Grants Pass was. I'm sure some of you are already aware, but if not, Grants Pass was um, a federal Supreme Court case that had longstanding precedent. And last year, the decision was reversed. And that decision being reversed enabled local jurisdictions to clear homeless encampments and impose criminal penalties on homeless residents, even if the jurisdiction lacks the available shelter beds and mental health facilities. So, what was once considered cruel and unusual punishment, that being criminal penalties for not having a home, is no more. So the floodgates are open for jurisdictions to criminalize unhoused people without any regard to real solutions. The real solutions being housing. People need housing, affordable housing, supportive housing, housing near transit, et cetera. So that's not good. And since this has passed, we've seen the floodgates really just like open. Encampment bans are happening all over the state of California, all over like the whole western side of our country. But I'm just speaking about California really. And I did a little bit of research before this meeting. The last thing that I saw was around 14 different jurisdictions in California have enacted more um, more encampment bans, or at least like they've gone further than what was allowed previously. Um, Here are just a few of them, and I kind of explained a little bit what they are doing, which is terrible if you think about it. In Fremont, which we'll talk more about in just a second, they included the language aiding and abetting, and that might be why you might be familiar with it. It caught a lot of national news earlier this month because of that language, aiding and abetting, which again we'll get back to. In Santa Monica, they have banned homeless people from using sleeping bags. And I don't even know how to pronounce this county name. I'm not even gonna lie. This county in Southern California, they have this ordinance that like requires people to move every 300 feet every hour. Um, Fresno made it illegal to camp anywhere at any time. San Diego County resumed a previous ordinance before the Grants Pass decision that just bans encampments citywide. And there's other cities, other jurisdictions who are doing that, and also the state of California. Gavin and Newsom, but 1 month after the Grants Pass decision, he issued an executive order directing state agencies to clear encampments and on state property and encouraging local governments to do the same. So back to Fremont. This, I think it was February 11th when this passed. And what it does, it did successfully pass. Now, people who are unhoused in Fremont, they would be subject to $1,000 fine, or that should be or 6 months jail time for anyone who sleeps on public property. Um, the city said that they do not intend to criminalize people, that this is just a tool in their toolbox. But if it's there, they will use it, and people will go to jail for being unhoused, especially if the city does not have uh, affordable housing or wraparound supportive services for people. And if you know anyone who works in homelessness professionally, or anyone who has gone to shelters or like has been seeking, who needs support, who needs resources, getting resources is really hard. And also, there's just not enough of them. There's not enough shelter beds. There's not enough um, temporary rental assistance or anything else. If there is something, that it's just quite literally not enough. So very bad for Fremont, unfortunately. Um, and then again, another note on the the aiding and abetting. So in the ordinance, it actually says any person causing, permitting, aiding, abetting, or concealing a violation of this chapter um, could be subject to these penalties as well. And it's so vague. It is just so, the language is so vague. It could apply to anybody. It could apply to service providers. It could apply to churches. It could apply to mutual aid groups, street medicine teams, or even just bystanders who are, maybe walking by and seeing someone be harassed, and like, why are you harassing this person? Right? That could even be considered aiding and abetting because the language is so broad. Um, there are a lot of legal challenges to this already. Fremont for Everyone is a group in Fremont. It's mostly a bunch of residents who are working together to kind of oppose this ordinance, even though it already passed. But they're still trying to find ways to advocate for unhoused people in the city of Fremont. I believe that they're challenging the aiding and abetting language. I don't know too much more about it, but I did include a QR code, which is right underneath their logo. Um, and you could join Fremont for Everyone. You can talk to them, see what's going on. I would recommend that. And another thing I wanted to mention is that there's a group called Hero Tent that is mostly based in San Jose or South Bay, and they are going out to do some outreach. And they're looking to build connections with East Bay organizations and individuals, and more South Bay organizations and individuals who want to support the people who are actually living in these encampments. I'm so sorry if I'm just like yapping your way. I have a lot to say. I'm trying to my best to be quick. But I also wanted, while I have the platform to speak on this, I wanted to mention this tragic news from Vallejo. The news broke yesterday that a man in Vallejo was killed. He was crushed to death in an encampment cleaning. I don't know all of the details, but I believe he was like covered in a tarp or something, and the city was doing an encampment cleaning. Um, Unfortunately killed him, and then later they found his body. The news broke yesterday that the cause of death was because of the sweeping, right? So when we are talking about encampment sweeps, we're talking about the very likelihood of death. and encampments have been killing people for a long time. This is not new, unfortunately. This is just a recent um, story of someone passing away due to city sanctioned encampments. The last thing I wanted to talk about is some things going on in the state. So there are some good bills coming up that would address some of these problems. I don't have, and there might be more that are introduced. The first bill that I actually know about that's available is AB 1165. It's a Gibson bill. And what it would do is amend the state's health and safety code, declaring housing uh, is of vital statewide importance to health, safety, and welfare. Um, I'm sure that would allow for like more resources to go towards housing if it is passed. That's one. Another one, it doesn't have a name yet, it hasn't been publicized just yet, but it would, at least at this point in theory, address some of the criminalization that we're seeing. So it could become a state precedent to not criminalize unhoused people. So we'll see what happens with that. Right now, I don't have a lot of information, but these are some hopeful, good things at the end of the tunnel. And unfortunately, there are some bad things that have already been made public. So these are mostly assembly bills, some Senate bills in California that would make things a little bit more difficult for us, people who do want to see solutions to homelessness. The first is AB 255 Haney. It redirects funding from Housing First under the assumption that Housing First isn't working. And like Haney is of the opinion that it just encourages overdoses. So there's a lot of work to do around that one. AB 20, DeMaio. It's just like anti-housing first, just like pretty explicitly, like they just don't like it as a concept. Next, AB 820, Pellerin. This would mean if it passes, it would be jurisdictions and police departments can move unhoused people to other jurisdictions so long as there's a shelter bed available for them. Some cities already do this. San Francisco does this, but it would just become statewide and allow for more resources to go to that. Another one, SB 748 Richardson. This would include RVs and people living in their cars as an encampment and allow for those cars to be impounded, and forcing people to be in shelters, which again are usually temporary. You can't live in a shelter forever, or you shouldn't at least. There should be permanent supportive housing for people. And then well, this is not lastly, just on this slide. The next one, SB 569. This would speed up the removal of encampments. It basically gives more funding to Caltrans to do sweeps next to roadways, freeways, highways, anything. Um, anything public. Oh no. Oh wait, I guess that is the end. So yeah, I'm so sorry again. I feel like I've just been speaking really fast. Um, but I wanted to share this information with you all. And you know, I wish I had more time to lead off on a more positive note. Um, but there are solutions to this problem. It is something that we can change. We're dealing with a lot of um, difficult ideologies to change, but we can do it. And it's great that we're here talking about it now. That's the only way we can stop further criminalization and to actually support people who need the support the most.
Thank you, Kiana. Thank you so much for that. And we will hold back on questions or any questions for speakers for now until towards the end during our group discussion. Thank you, Kiana. So now our next speaker actually had a last minute emergency with work. So Ruby is actually not here live with us, but she did send us a recording of her presentation. So we can go ahead. I'm actually going to check in with my team if you're able to play the video. If not, we could hop on to our next speaker.
Why don't we, did you watch the video, Jessica?
Correct. Yeah, it's a 4-minute video. But if it's
Yeah.
easier for you all to hop on to the next person, we could totally do that.
I think for the sake of time, because there's already been so much amazing like updates and information shared by Kiana, And we do want to, we're already like over time, and we do want to make sure that we have time for the other speakers and any questions. So why don't we just share Ruby's video in the follow-up if that works for everyone?
Perfect. So now we're going to hop on to jump to our next speaker. So now we're shifting our focus a little to Hayward area. I'm excited to introduce our next speaker, Annette Sanders from our partner agency, Glad Tidings Community Development Center, to share about her team's work. Annette, I'll pass it on to you.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be here. Um, we're here talking about housing and the different things that we need to do. And the way I thought about when I was asked to do this is address it in a holistic point of view. And that means it's not just about food. It's about housing. It's about going in and out to make things happen in our neighborhood. We're in Glad Tidings. We're talking about making it real. So I wrote down as we begin to talk how we all need to be accountable, not just the city, not just the state, but all of us need to work together to address the unhoused and keep those that are housed. One of the things I thought about for our community is that we need to know that we need to speak for ourselves. No one else can speak for us. And then when they start speaking for us, is how we get in these positions that we are in now with Fremont and all the other ones, because we're not standing up for our own self and say it's not happening. The other part that I thought that need to be accountable is the faith base, and that's what Glad Tidings is. And we need to help advocate for churches. We also need to help advocate for our tenants and our residents in our neighborhood, including our unhoused. Because if they're not able to be housed, we can't feed them food. We can't do anything. We're just doing a vicious circle. And if you would, I would say it'd be like the hamster on the wheel. We just keep turning. And there's no solution in the midst of that. City, I'm asking, and I think that if they're on or if we could, they need to be more accountable. With all the services that we have going on, it is so hard to access these same services to get in there to help our unhoused. It needs to be slimmed out and it needs to be more accessible in our neighborhood. I thought about the so-called below market rate, which I call the bait and switch, because when it came aboard, it was to help the unhoused get in there. And in the below market rate, it's just right below the market rate. And every year they're raising it up and they're raising it up and they're raising it up to where a lot of our seniors could not even afford to stay in their place. So now they become housed, they become unhoused. And these are the ones that laid the road down for us to be here, and now they're unhoused. So there are different ways that I think that we need to be more accountable as far as working together and making policies that make sense. Not policies. I was listening to the young lady earlier, and they were talking about the AB, whichever one that he was saying that, it's not working is because it's making people unhoused and making them overdose on drugs. I really shook my head because I was like, how did that happen? How did you arrive at that situation? When I'm trying to figure out if I'm unhoused and I can't afford rent, but yet you're not helping me get a place to stay. One of the groups, there's two groups that I think mainly needs to be addressed and we're forgetting about as mostly is one, the unhoused of the incarcerated, formerly incarcerated, the unhoused of our seniors who are now outside. And then we also need to work with the seniors that are in their houses because they have self-incarcerated themselves. I think that, I think that we need to move closely and work together where all of us need to be accountable to make this happen. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Annette. Now, while still learning from efforts in the Hayward area, I'm excited to introduce our next speaker, Sandrea Mabry from South Hayward Parish, who also share about some of her team's work. Sandrea, I'll go ahead and pass it on to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Annette, for all the information that you have given us. Specifically, hi everybody, good afternoon. I'll try to make this quick. South Hayward Parish, we are a 21 bed capacity shelter. We work with the unhoused population and also those who are food insecure. We have a food pantry on site. We have a food pantry on site. We have a shelter. We also have a resource center. So Monday through Friday, folks who are unhoused, they can come to our property 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. They can get a lunch between 12 o'clock. They get access to some case management services. I am the case manager here trying to get hours for people, helping them out because we don't have a specific case manager at this specific location, excuse me. But I do some case management here and there. We offer ID services if anybody needs a free ID waiver. Um, and then so we serve lunch. We do morning snack, afternoon snack. We also help people get to social services, things like that. And then we have our food pantry. Food pantry is for anybody. Hayward Union City, Castro Valley resident. You're able to come once a week and get a box of food. Outside of that, specifically for SHP, we don't do too much outreach. It is word of mouth. And South Hayward Parish has been here for longer than I have, and so a lot of people know South Hayward Parish is kind of like it's a checkpoint for a lot of people if they need help for resources. Um, and so I would encourage everybody to know the steps if you are unhoused. The first thing you need to do is get a coordinated entry assessment. And so I encourage people to understand that and make sure if you're unhoused, the first thing you do is go to Bax Headco Center on 590 B Street and you go get your assessment completed. And then from there, work on getting a document ready. So that's your ID, verification of income, verification of homelessness, verification of disability. So all those things are needed in order to get matched to permanent supportive housing through the county. And so we work with people to do that. And then we also, we use Saha Homes for housing listings. We use RCD, Ebalti. We also look at future development, see what's coming, because by the time we do find something, it's already, it came and gone. And so we also look at future developments from certain developers and make sure our folks are applying to anything that they can and what they do qualify for. Even if they don't qualify, we know housing takes 3+ years, and so they might be in a better position within that phone call. And so we encourage them to apply. We have another location in Castro Valley. Similar things, they mirror each other. One thing that is different, we don't have a food pantry at our Castro Valley location. We do have safe parking for those who are living in their car. We have 6 tiny homes. It's transitional programming. Folks do have to make at least $1,200 a month and pass background check for that program. We have a 50-bed capacity shelter at Castro Valley instead of 21. We in similar things, case management, access to IDs, things like that. And so we are the connection to a lot of services. We won't be the end solution, but we'll connect you to BACS. We'll connect you to BACH. We'll connect you to abode services. And so I just want to make sure everybody knows and aware of all the things that we do. We also have mail services that is on the slide. Folks are able to receive mail 3 months, up to 3 months at our location. They can come and get mail Monday through Friday. And so, we do a lot of things here. But that's my spiel.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you for sharing that. So I will leave it up to folks. If we have any follow-up questions for any of our guest speakers, we can do that now, or we can also share Ruby from St. Mary's video. It's a 4-minute video. And I know Ruby's sharing a little bit about the county's Measure W that was passed in 2020. So if we have any questions right now for any of our current guest speakers, we can hop onto that or watch Ruby's video. I want to get a sense of what you all prefer. And we could still come back to questions after the video too, if we decide to do that. Any immediate thoughts? Yes, okay, perfect. So let's do that. Let's do any immediate questions now. And we could share the video after with everyone else. Any follow-up questions? We could start with guest speakers. Any questions for any of our guest speakers? And feel free to also put in the comment box. For my team, Jocelyn, can we share the group discussion slide to share the guiding questions too?
Oh, I have a question.
Go
This
for
is
it.
Andrea over at First Press. Um, just in general, I mean, I don't know what happens, but from the schools, or I'm sorry, you said for the guest speakers. This is for Hayward Unified. Sorry.
Oh, for anyone. We could open up our general
Okay.
conversation.
So if a family comes to the school district and say, "Hey, I'm unhoused," what resources do you already give them? And because what happens is, I usually get a call. I get a call from somebody in the school district and say, "Hey, I have this family, been working with them," and so I just want to make sure like we can have like a cheat sheet to just either email to the Harry Unified or something similar. Um, Sorry, I was reading the question, and I just want to know like what steps do you guys already do?
Yeah, that's a great question. Any immediate thoughts? Maybe other organizations that you have a system set up like that, or maybe any folks in Hayward that have worked directly with students or um and that actually falls under one of our questions. What practices does your organization uh currently have? Maybe any effective mechanisms you would like to share with others?
I guess for this is Annette from Glad Tidings. Hi, Sandria. So I guess one of the greatest things that we do, and that was an excellent question for Sandra. We coordinate, we call, we ask each other, what can we do? How can we fix it? But when we start dealing with the city and the state, it's our question because they call us as we are the answer to all, and then we want to know what exactly are you doing to help the families that might be unhoused, that might need food, might just coming to school for breakfast, and that's their first meal they had for the first 2 days. What are you doing? How can we help you? How can we help support? That's why I said accountability is for us all. It's not just for South Haven Parish that I worked with for years, and Sandria, Glad Tidings, or even La Familia. These are the nonprofits and some of the faith-based churches that are stepping in to do it. But the city and the county school district, how do we make this a seamless project? Where we all, if they come into the school district, how can we make it happen for the families?
Thank you, Annette. That's great. And it's also a form of initiative on your end, directly telling them, what can we do to step in? Anita, I think I see your hand raised.
Hello.
Hi, Anita.
Hello.
Yes,
Hello.
we could hear you, Anita. Go for it.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello.
Hi, Anita. Can you hear? Maybe you can hear us. We could hear
I
you.
can. I don't know. Did I hear you? Yes.
Okay,
I'm
go for
from
it.
Oakland. I live in Oakland, California, and I am a council member at large, Oakland Council, and we have a DOPS program going, which is the Downtown Oakland Specific Project. Now, it includes housing and it includes redeveloping Oakland into a tourist city. Well, and with all kind of redevelopment, economic redevelopment coming out of the pandemic. I'd like to know, how do you feel about that? Because there are several district. It has been divided into different districts. There's West Embarcadero, which goes along the shoreline. There's Victoria Court, which goes through West Oakland. There's the Green Loop, which comes through my area where I live. And then there's Banff, which goes through East Oakland. So I don't know what you all are trying to do with your improvements in Castro Valley, but I'm sure you wouldn't want to be left out. Your community there or your city council, because we've drawn in Emeryville, Berkeley, and Albany. And I'd like to know, how do you feel about that? If you have any, or if you would like to be involved, information or get any information about that. Oakland is called DOPS. Well, it used to be called DOPS. I don't know what it is now. Oakland City Council has approved pretty much of its activities already. So we're just waiting to break ground and certain and get ideas from other people, homes and establishment housing in Oakland, because I find that some people might own many houses, but they're not living in them, but they're not renting them to the homeless people either. And I think that could take care of some of the homeless problem. And I just like to know, how do you feel about it? If you want to contact and get involved with Oakland, it might help your city as well, Castro Valley, which is just over the hill from Keller Avenue.
Thank you, Anita. Anita, do you have any information you can attach
Pardon me?
to? Do you have any information with you right now that we can attach to the comment box? If not, you can send to me later and we could share more with everyone later. And or does anyone have any
Okay,
responses for Anita? Thank you, Anita.
you're welcome. I would be glad to send you some information. So how would I look you up? City council or
Anita, I actually it might be easier if I follow up with you. I totally forgot I should have your email from registration. So I'm gonna note it down. I think my team
my
has already noted it. Justward would
it's
love to receive
L
information. So we'll reach out to you, Anita,
L
and then uh-huh.
LOCHEANITA 99@gmail.com.
Perfect. Thank you, Anita. We'll go ahead and reach out to you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
And Justward confirm we do have your email. Thank you, Justward. Any other thoughts or responses or questions?
Any questions?
I have one last thing. Within the food pantry, we have our I think it's called like our success surveys, or it's just basically feedback. It's how we're doing in the food pantry. And so one of the things that we always ask folks, like, is there anything else that you need? Is there anything else that you are looking for? And so some of the feedback for us has been more services, right? And so people just don't, I think at this point there are a lot of services, and I hate to like duplicate services. I would I would love if we just had more money for the services that we already provide, because that's what's needed. Like specifically in Hayward, there's no rental, there's no prevention, there's no back rental assistance program right now. Fremont there is, Oakland there is, Contra Costa, nothing in unincorporated Alameda County. And so that's one thing that has been a barrier or a challenge for us right now because people calling in and say, "Hey, do you have any programs for rental assistance?" And if you're outside of Hayward, in Hayward, I haven't seen anything from Union City. But Fremont, Contra Costa County, and Oakland, they have their own, I guess, bucket of funding for prevention. And so um, I struggle with that. There's Echo, there's Seasons of Sharing, but we all know those get filled pretty quick. And so it would be nice if there was maybe another bucket of funding or something for prevention because it's very hard. It's easier to pay your back rent versus trying to find a new place, trying to find something that's within your means, things like that. Like I say this all the time. I have my personal story. I've been homeless. I went through the process. Some things didn't work. Some things do work. And so I just try my best to hopefully, give all the resources that I can give to the next person. And so some people they don't know the resources. And so I just, I hope I wish there was another bucket of funding for at least prevention. I will say that.
Thank you, Sandra.
And Jocelyn, I would like to just champion behind Sandrea, that if we were to look at the biggest needs that we need to address in Hayward right now, that would be it. I don't know how many people that have called us and said we need resources in Hayward to help with a rent, or how many times we went and paid rent, or better yet, pay the PG&E bill so they can stay safe in their own home. So we have to be advocating for those that are out and advocating to keep those that are in, and Hayward just don't, it's not a priority to us.
I also agree. The other piece, like we help folks with housing, right? We help folks with food, and so some of the other things we might need to look at is like hygiene items. Laundry is expensive. Paper towel, toilet paper, those things also like maybe another agency might pick that up, and then that leaves room for another budget for housing, And so I had to buy laundry detergent the other day, and I was like, huh? I had to double check. And so from that, the price of eggs, we try our best all around, and I think our agencies and all of our the South Hayward Neighborhood Collaborative is doing a lot, and so um, it would be great. Just yes, more funding. What else I would say? Somewhere, some way, things need to be streamlined a little bit better. It's kind of like all over the place, and there's a bunch of resources all over the place, and some of them might not be updated, things like that. The day to day, through the Hayward Library, her name is Lori. She does a really good job of printing and making sure all the services are on there. And how else do we get that to everybody, right? And so I think like I said, laundry is a big thing. Like specifically at South Hayward, we only have one day where we do laundry, and that's partner with Park Refuge. Her name is Rosalind, and so that's been a beautiful help in the shelter, right? But what about the folks in their housing that's struggling just to pay the rent? So
Thank you, Sandra. That's a really good point. And it's also a reminder of what we mentioned earlier, how it's not just about food, it's not just about housing. You can't talk about one without the other. The laundry one, I hadn't thought of that, but that's another great example and just an extension of that conversation. I'm specifically curious around what Sandra mentioned about we need a better streamlined system. Any thoughts around that? Maybe other folks that have sort of like any effective systems around that, or any ideas to do that? How do we streamline this? How do we collaborate better? Or perhaps maybe with local government, anything we've seen that does work?
I think, Jocelyn, we don't know how to make it work. I think that's why we're here trying to build a policy to say, let's make this work. Let's make it happen. I think if we knew how to fix it, we would have fixed it 5 years ago. We're just saying these are here, and the powers that be, the smart people that might know how to make it streamlined, make it more accessible, doing the holistic approach. I can say, and I'm not, when I say this, please take it in the love that I'm giving. Oakland has a lot of resources. Fremont has a lot of resources. Hayward, unincorporated Hayward, Union City, we do not. So we look to you for help, and we say we need help. But to streamline these to get access, by the time we sometimes, and I can speak for myself now, sometimes when we address the resources, by the time we get there, they're gone. Or by the time we get there, I've had some agencies straight told me, we don't handle your area. So how do we make this, how do we do a policy where we say we're all one? I'm back to what I started with, a holistic approach.
Yeah, I totally agree with the holistic approach. I think that's exactly what's missing in a lot of our local systems of support. We're not thinking of things holistically. We're thinking of things like independently, like you have this issue, work on that. Um, and when we're thinking of solutions, I personally think we need to really think outside of the box. The way that we have things set up now, the way that we do things now is not like natural. It was set up to be this way. We're very fragmented. We're not thinking holistically. So I dropped a resource in the chat. It's called Solution to Homelessness. It's a documentary that was recently filmed, and the filmmakers are currently screening around the country. And they went around the country. They talked with different counties, different cities that have homelessness programs, and they kind of asked, like, what are you doing? What are you doing, and what is working? And a lot of them had some really powerful insight. And there are some cities that have actually sat down with their Department of Housing, their service providers, and homeless people, everybody. And they said, oh, and their business community, right? They got all corners of our what makes a community together. And they said, okay, what this is not working. We have unhoused people on the streets. Obviously, they don't want to be on the streets, and obviously, no one wants to see them on the streets. So, how do we actually fix the problem? And some cities who've actually asked themselves that question, they were able to reimagine the system. They were able to reimagine what supportive care actually looks like. And I think we can learn a lot from other places, which is why I dropped the documentary in the chat, which is why the documentary was made in the first place. But yeah, I think what we need to do as a community is really like understand what's not working and then talk about it. We need to talk about it. We need to normalize opportunities for improvement. My 2 cents.
Thank you, Kiana. So in the interest of time, we are coming to an end to our conversation, but I do want to thank everyone for being here and especially to our guest speakers. Thank you for sharing all of that insight. And this is the whole point of why our team has these conversations too. There's always something new to learn from each other, things we may not have even thought of before, and that's the whole point, to continue addressing these issues. So thank you everyone again. Here on this slide, we have 2 QR codes. The first one being a QR code for our team survey. And the second one, if you're interested in becoming a food justice leader and activist. And finally, please sign up to receive updates on how you can take action. So you'll be receiving our team's advocacy alerts. Some of that includes, for example, in April or end of April, we'll be going to Sacramento to lobby. And so that's just one example, and including all of our other events. So stay tuned for all of those upcoming events. Our next one being in March 27th, which will be another community conversation like this, led by my colleague Jessward. Thank you everyone so much and have a great day.
You too. Beautiful.
Thank you.